it's very hard for people to get up off the couch, as we say, and go and volunteer. Like I remember leading up when I got involved in the first campaign that I was involved in, it took a long time for me to finally say, okay, I got to go to the campaign office and do this. But then once you're there, you're hooked for life. I mean, many of us are. So, yeah, I don't doubt that the other parties are struggling with volunteers and door knockers. But I just think, man, if Polyev can get this many people to come to his rallies, surely fraction of those can also then dip out the next day and go canvassing for him.
Welcome to Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025. The third week of the 45th general election has come to a close, and with only 2 weeks remaining until voters head to the polls on Monday, April 28th, the landscape seems to be cementing into the minds of Canadians. To help us break down the state of the race after week 3, we are joined today by political commentator, Scoop.ca editor, and Earnscliffe Strategies Principal, Dale Richardson. Today, we'll talk about the last 7 days on the campaign trail from party leaders hitting Western Canada, including Alberta and Saskatchewan, crowd sizes, polling, and what's coming up this week on week 4 of the 45th general election. Across Canada, our cities, towns, villages, and rural communities are alive with stories waiting to be told. Stories of innovation and economic development, resilience in the face of the housing challenges, and the financial hurdles municipalities overcome every day. At the Cross Border Network, we bring these stories to life. From coast to coast to coast, we're connecting Canadians to the issues shaping our communities and showcasing the people working tirelessly to make them thrive. With your support, we can expand our reach, amplify more voices, and shine a light on the challenges and triumphs of municipal life. For as little as $3.99 a month, you can help us grow and continue sharing the stories that matter most. Join us today and be part of this important mission. Together, we can tell more stories, build stronger communities, and make a real difference. Support the Cross Border Network now. Visit www.crossborderinterviews.ca today. Dale, thank you so much for sitting down with me and talking about week 3 of the 45th general election here in Canada. From your perspective as a political observer from Saskatchewan, what did you see? What did you hear? And what were the highlights for you in this campaign during week 3?
First of all, Chris, great to see you. I haven't talked to you in a couple of months, so yeah, it's nice to always to be with you. Um, you know what? It seems like every week during the campaign, Prime Minister Carney he likes to during the campaign he should mostly be leader Carney, but as we're talking today, I think he's put on his prime ministerial hat again. So he seems to be dipping into that bag, maybe now more than people think he should. But being the prime minister to respond to the tariff threats, which I don't really understand this week because it was mostly good news on the tariff front with President Trump pulling back on that, and there's still tariffs in place for Canada, of course, but certainly things they've not been escalated by any means. So maybe Mr. Carney is getting a little bored on the campaign trail, which I think is by design. I've talked with a lot of people recently about Mr. Carney's. He's honestly been boring during the campaign, but I think it's by design and just to kind of show a stable presence that people can trust and hand on the till, so to speak. So it's been an interesting week, certainly interesting campaign so far. I mean, a lot of people are, of course, right now talking about the polls. And speaking about being bored, I wonder if the media are getting a little bored by the campaign because some of the coverage that I saw today was a number of stories on Mr. Polyev's recent rally where I guess people were wearing "Don't Believe the Polls" hoodies or t-shirts or something like that. So and there was some discussion about that. But I was on another my firm did a webinar yesterday, and we were yeah I mean we were talking about this. It's been a fairly straightforward campaign so far in terms of neither of the leaders have really had any gaffes. Polyev personally has not had any, and I think he has been what people have come to know him to be, good or bad. So I think things seem to have settled in this third week, and yeah, we're definitely getting into the final stretch of the campaign.
While you and I have probably both, I've covered politics, you've been involved in the election campaign, and I have also as well. But the first few weeks are really sleeper weeks for any campaign, whether it be a federal campaign or a provincial campaign or even a municipal campaign. Is this the sort of the kickoff to the official start? Because in week 4 we have the leaders debates, both French and English leaders debate, and then the following week we have the last full week of campaigns prior to the voting day on April 28th, and then in there you throw in Good Friday and Easter Monday when people are tuned out, but that's when people are going to be sitting down at the dinner table talking about the election. So is this truly just like the start of the campaign, and the last 3 weeks were just people just getting their stuff up in order?
No, I wouldn't say it's the start of the campaign because a lot of, at least they should have been. The parties have been, their candidates have, they've been door knocking and canvassing, hopefully for many weeks or even months now. But I would say once the leaders debate happens next week, that is for sure. That's the final stretch after that. And you and I talked during the Saskatchewan provincial campaign this last fall, and I can remember this current stage of the campaign being really quite boring, where nothing is really happening and everybody's just waiting for the leaders debate. And yeah, I mean that happens, and either things will coming out of the leaders debate will make a lot of news, or they won't at all. And it's the final stretch into getting out the vote, as we say in the political world. It's going and physically knocking on the doors of the people that the parties have identified as supporters and telling them, listen, it's time to go. Advanced polls are open. They're open these days. And then election day on the 28th, where you try and, I mean, by that point, you try and have just, a small number of people left on your list. You try to whittle it down, during the voting period so that it's just the last few remaining people. But yeah, that we're into the home stretch here, Chris.
Let's talk about the lay of the land in Saskatchewan. And I am a data person. You're a data person. The last time the Saskatchewan residents voted for anyone but a conservative federally, I believe, was 2015 with Ralph Goodale. 2019, he lost his re-election bid. Um, are you seeing the conservative stronghold in Saskatchewan again? Because here in Alberta, we're seeing a divide between rural and urban, between Edmonton and Calgary going more traditionally to the progressive parties and the rural parts going to the more conservatives. We just had a provincial election where we saw that urban rural divide in Saskatchewan. Are you expecting it to go that way in the federal election, or are you expecting the conservatives to sweep all 14 seats again this election?
That's a really good question, and the answer is I don't know, Chris. I think it is maybe more likely in this election that a party besides the Conservatives pick up at least one seat in the province. I honestly, I mean, looking back on the last few days, like what has happened in this last week, both Mr. Carney and Mr. Singh with the NDP, they both made stops in Saskatoon.
On the
I
same
don't,
day.
yeah, right, yeah, on the same day. My understanding is that the NDP is not coming to Regina, and I'm honestly not surprised by that because I live in Regina. I live in the strongest NDP provincial constituency. Carla Beck is the MLA for my area. She won by I think 5,000 votes in October, or right, I think it was the biggest margin in the province. And Chris, I have not seen a single NDP lawn sign in my neighborhood. There are some Liberal Party signs. Mac Hurd, he's the candidate in Regina Luvan. But I am shocked by it, honestly, because it was less than 10 years ago when the NDP won Regina Luvan with Aaron Weir. He was the member of parliament. And then, of course, he was kicked out of the NDP caucus for something funny went on. But so I have been a bit stunned by that, but I really think that speaks to how diminished the federal NDP has been recently. And of course, we've seen that in the national polling where I think they're into the single digits in terms of support. So that will be really fascinating. And just turning to Saskatoon, I think Saskatoon West will be the competitive seat. The NDP have won that seat in they won that seat in 2015 actually. Sherry Benson was the member of parliament. But the Conservatives, they've held that since 2019 with Brad Redekop. So having both Mr. Singh and Mr. Carney visit Saskatoon does indicate that at least they think that they have a chance, either of those two parties. That one will be, it appears to be like it could be a true three-way race. So in that sense, I think it's hard to predict or hard to pick who might win that. But yeah, there could be a few seats. Then just finally, the northern seat, which takes up half of the province. Like if you look at it on a map, it's like literally from just north of Prince Albert to to the to the territories all the way up north. That I guess people are saying it will likely go Liberal. Uh, Buckley Boulanger, who is a former NDP provincial politician, he's put his name forward for that party. So yeah, overall, Chris, there could be a few seats that don't go Conservative.
Well, I find that riding and I'm going to get the name of the riding wrong here, but I'm going to try and pronounce it the Desnethe Nissipi Churchill River. I could be wrong there. I apologize if I got the name of the riding wrong, but it
Close
is
enough.
it. So you have Boulanger, who's running for the Liberals, who was a former Saskatchewan NDP MLA. Before that, he was a Liberal MLA before crossing
That's
the
right.
floor to the Saskatchewan NDP. You have Jim Lemaire, if I'm
Uh,
pronouncing that.
yeah, Lemeg.
He
Lemeg.
was the Saskatchewan party's MLA and cabinet minister who took over for Buckley Boulanger. And then you have the NDP candidate, who is Doug Rasheen, who ran for the Saskatchewan NDP in
Right.
Saskatchewan Rivers. So while it's going to probably be a two-horse race in that area, and let's just put it, I'm just going to say that as the political observer that I am, it's going to be a former MLA. Do you see the Saskatchewan Party and the Saskatchewan NDP playing a role in that riding to try and shore up support one way or the other? Because the Saskatchewan NDP probably want to try and stay out of this election because they have two people that were former members of their party who are running, and then you have the Saskatchewan
Yeah.
Party who is with their former cabinet minister.
Yeah, again, Chris, it's a good question, and I really don't have an answer for you on that one. Um, yeah, I mean, the kind of the North provincially has for a long time been NDP. Jim LeMay, he won in a by-election for the South Party, which was a huge upset and a huge win for him and for the South Party. Which there'll likely be books or at least papers written about that. But um, in terms of like, I mean, I guess it all comes down to organization. Running campaigns in the North is vastly different than running a campaign anywhere else in the province, particularly in the cities. You don't really do door knocking. It's really based on um, relationships with nations. So it's a totally different thing. So I guess I don't know what the answer is in terms of will. I don't see any involvement by the SAS party, at least in the north, in any fashion, or at least maybe SAS party supporters, but maybe the NDP in some capacities, just because there's so much overlap between the federal and the provincial parties.
What's the ballot question in Saskatchewan this election? Because when I speak to people in Ontario, when I speak to
Yeah.
people in Alberta, I'm getting different answers for Saskatchewan residents. What is that ballot box question? Because when I was at SARM in just a few months ago, the ballot box question was these Chinese tariffs on the canola industry, which is going to decimate the entire industry, and how the Liberals have not done anything about it. What are you hearing from people in Saskatchewan about what that ballot box is? It tariffs? Is it affordability? Is it change? What do you hear?
Yeah, I mean, for the SARM audience, I'm not surprised that they said that. The Chinese canola tariffs are a massive, massive problem, and honestly, it's something that I'm surprised that more people have not talked about. So thank you for raising it in this platform. I just it's a major concern. I would say that in most ways in our province, the ballot box question is something to the effect of which party is best will be best positioned to ensure Saskatchewan's economy, businesses, and our families are strong. And so that really speaks to which of the parties will not hamper the efforts of companies like a Mosaic Potash to it won't hamper them from doing their business, which is taking potash out of the ground and shipping it to the U.S. or sending it overseas. Same with oil and gas. Same with companies like Cameco in the north. Um, building building a regulatory environment where those companies can thrive, which therefore results in the people of Saskatchewan thriving and providing enough revenue, honestly, so that governments can reinvest into people in this province to create a better quality of life. And I would say really, even though I think that the Liberal Party could do better in Saskatchewan and this time around, I really think that this is going to be fascinating to see is if Mr. Carney and the Liberal Party, if they are elected, what will they do in terms of Western Canada, in terms of how they approach how they approach the economy? Will Mr. Carney will he offer some kind of olive branch in the way that Justin Trudeau never did to Western Canada? Will he take one of Mr. Trudeau's signature policy pieces like Bill C-69, which is the No More Pipelines Act, and tear it up as a gesture of we need to build things in this province. This is important to Saskatchewan and Alberta. Um, and so I think that's the ballot question: is which of the parties, if they are elected, can unleash Saskatchewan's economy, which therefore creates a better quality of life for people in Saskatchewan.
I want to turn to the broader context of Canada as the whole for a few seconds before we wrap up here, Dale. And you mentioned it at the top of the interview about the crowd sizes versus the polling. Now, I will be the first to admit that I have never seen a Canadian political leader since I've been covering politics since 1993 pull the type of crowds that Pierre Poilievre has been pulling across Canada, whether it's on a Wednesday night or a Monday morning. He is getting people out and people are energized. What do you make of the crowd sizes that people are going and seeing Pierre Poilievre talk on a Monday night?
I, it honestly concerns me, and I'm not the. I don't think I'm the first person to be a little contrarian on this. But as somebody who I cut my teeth as a Sask Party staffer, knocking on doors during elections, but in particular in between elections, in the leading up to the 2016 provincial campaign, we spent 4 summers in a row door knocking, and that resulted in a 41 seat majority for Brad Wall and the Sask Party. So the reason I say that, Chris, is when I see that many people at a rally, it's awesome. There's no question about it. That that many people going to see Mr. Poilievre speak at a rally, and by the way, he is tremendous in those settings. I've seen him speak a number of times, and he's very compelling. But I get worried because during an election campaign, it is one on the ground knocking on doors and identifying supporters. And there have been news stories of campaign teams, current candidates for the Conservative Party saying, we need help knocking on doors. So,
Just to interject there for a second, that's not
yeah,
just the conservatives. When I talk to liberal staffers or even NDP staffers, they're
yeah,
having a hard time trying to find door knockers right now because people are just not wanting to engage this election. They just want to take the
yeah.
glory and not do the hard work.
Well, and yeah, no, and it's something to keep in mind of as, in kind of modern campaigning, right? Where it's so easy to leave a comment on an Instagram post or, say something rude on a TikTok post. But it's very hard for people to get up off the couch, as we say, and go and volunteer. Like I remember leading up when I got involved in the first campaign that I was involved in, it took a long time for me to finally say, okay, I got to go to the campaign office and do this. But then once you're there, you're hooked for life. I mean, many of us are. So, yeah, I don't doubt that the other parties are struggling with volunteers and door knockers. But I just think, man, if Polyev can get this many people to come to his rallies, surely fraction of those can also then dip out the next day and go canvassing for him or get out the people that they've identified to vote for him. And because I'm not hearing that, and in fact, quite the opposite, people are saying publicly that I get worried about it. And just finally, I worry about it in particular because if the Conservatives and Poilievre do not win, then there's going to be a lot of disappointment. And I can see it happening already. And, we kind of touched on it earlier with the people wearing hoodies with saying, don't believe the polls. And yeah, man, there's going to be a lot of disappointment if he can't pull it off. If he does, great. I'll be super thrilled, but I worry.
Are you surprised at the coalition, the sort of the group that has come out and supported Carney? Because the Liberals should not be in the place where they are right now. After 10 years, and traditionally a 10-year government is the length of any government going back in our Canadian Confederation, 10 years, and then usually we do that changeover. But we are seeing, and I was at the Carney event here in Calgary because I'm going to try and get to all the campaigns when they arrive in Calgary. I was speaking to people who had voted Green in 2021. I had people who were voting NDP in the last election, and they said they would not have done that if Justin Trudeau was prime minister. We often talk about this honeymoon phase that leaders get when they get elected. Is this just the honeymoon phase, and then we're gonna like have a massive drop off after the next after April 28th, or is he riding the progressive wave to potentially win here?
Well, I mean, the question is it progressive?
Or is
There's
it
a lot of,
anti-Polyev?
I think it. I mean, I've always thought that the high support for the Conservatives that we've seen in the last couple of years, it was artificially high, and it was artificially high because people hated Justin Trudeau so much. So I think the combination of those two factors, and having concerns about Mr. Polyev and people thinking he maybe is a little too friendly with Trump, or appears as though if he is prime minister that he would be too friendly with him, and therefore he would like let Trump walk all over him, and tariffs would continue, and the 51st state comments would continue from him. I think there's understandable concern in that regard, but I really think first and foremost it is that people really hated Trudeau. They were sick of him, and Mr. Carney is definitely not Trudeau. He has come along with, I don't want to say a breath of fresh air, but certainly a different person for the Liberal Party, and that seems to have worked out very well for them.
And the NDP's collapse to almost 8% nationally. This is unheard of. You have to go back to about, I think, if I'm not mistaken, 1997 or 1993 to see this low of support for the NDP. This is changing the entire name of the demographic of, or the name of the game, because some ridings in BC are those blue-orange switches. In Ontario, there's the orange-red switchers. So, what are you watching when it comes to this collapse of the NDP? Are you watching for where those NDP votes go in Western Canada and Eastern Canada, or are you just watching to see this party that was once the party of Jack Layton and brought it to 103 members go to potentially less than 10?
I have a feeling that there's going to be many heads that are going to roll for the NDP after this election. Although maybe not, because I mean, the NDP, they've been criticized federally for being too kind with their people in their party, the leaders, like Mr. Singh, who clearly they underperform, but they're just allowed to continue. The Conservatives, meanwhile, they do the opposite, right? They're quick to bounce out leaders, which is a problem by itself. But I think for the NDP federally, I think they're going to be looking to take some lessons from the Western Canadian NDP provincial parties. Like, I mean, Saskatchewan's NDP, I think, is a great example where in the last few years, I mean, Carla Beck and the NDP, they just about pulled off an election victory in October. But what led to that? What led to that very solid result where they could almost win? What did that party do? What positions did they take in Saskatchewan at least, which allowed voters to have a very strong look at them in a bunch of different parts around the province. Um, Alberta, same thing. I mean, who knows how Mr. Nenshi will do in the election against Premier Smith in a couple of years, but they're a very strong opposition party, and of course BC with Premier David Eby, they're the government, and they just barely hung on in the fall as well. But and then of course Manitoba, Wap Kinew, he's a tremendous premier. I mean, he is really yeah, Saskatchewan and Manitoba, I guess, are probably the two best examples of what can we do here federally going forward that helps us reset. So yeah, don't be surprised if you hear news reports about members of the federal NDP having taken a lot of meetings with the Prairie NDP parties.
I want to just turn to the next 2 weeks because we are just under 2 weeks from election day and just over 2 weeks from election day. I apologize. What are you watching? What are you going to be paying attention to see how this unfolds over the next 2 weeks? Is there ridings that you'll be specifically looking at in Saskatchewan or across Canada that will give you an indication on who could form the next government, whether it be a minority or a majority government?
I think I'll be looking at what happens in the leaders' debate, particularly what happens coming out of it, obviously. Is there a signature moment in the debate
Yeah.
that gets people talking afterwards? In particular, and it's a huge question in campaigning and politics these days, but who sees it? Who sees the leaders' debate and in what form? Right? People are, your show, it's on, a lot of people watch it on YouTube. I know, Chris. People are going to be seeing it on that, or are they going to be seeing clips from the leaders debate on CTV or CBC? And what's the spin on them, right? And then the third, coming out of the leaders debate, I'm going to be looking at how does Polyev perform, and does he look like a prime minister? Does he sound like a prime minister? Does he pass the prime ministerial test, which I think
Yeah.
a lot of people, if they're still maybe on the fence, which I'm not sure if there's that many people left, but maybe going, okay, this guy, he was pretty good there. I was a little concerned about him, but I really liked what I saw. So yeah, those three things on the leaders debate. And then finally, the turnout on election day or in the voting days. I I wonder if people keep seeing polls, and it's a concern in every election. But if they keep seeing polls where the Liberals and Mr. Carney are in at least a solid position where people start to think, he's got this. They've got it. It's kind of kind of like the conservative position in a way where, talking about the big crowd sizes and don't believe the polls, where there's a feeling on the ground where, no, we've got this. So I mean, like every campaign, it's going to come down to the ground game, which of the parties can, first of all, identify enough supporters and then go and get them out to vote. I mean, campaigns are really, when it comes down to it, Chris, they're very complex and complicated, but ultimately it's very simple. It's find the people that are going to vote for you and then get them out to vote for you. So that's what I'll be looking for.
Dale, it's always a pleasure to sit down with you and talk about politics, both federally and
You too.
provincially. Thank you so much to Earnscliffe Strategies for allowing you to come on the show and talk about this. It's always a pleasure. And we will see how this next 2 weeks unfolds, and we'll probably chat after the election. Thank you so much for doing this.
Great. Thanks, Chris.
Thank you so much for tuning in for another episode of Canada Votes 2025. Now, if you've enjoyed today's conversation and gained some valuable insights into the world of this election, please hit that subscribe button on your favorite podcast platform, or if you're watching this on YouTube, hit that subscribe button now. To learn more about the communities and people we feature on this show, visit us online at crossborderinterviews.ca. Now, your support means the world to us. So share this episode with your friends, your family, your colleagues, and even your community, and help keep the conversation going. Until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we will be live at the Saskatchewan Urban Municipalities Association all next week. So our Canada Votes 2025 series will look a little bit different next week. So we do apologize. So be sure to tune in every day next week as we sit down with mayors, councillors from across Saskatchewan to talk about this important federal election and how it will impact municipalities across Saskatchewan all next week. So until next time, stay informed, stay engaged, and we'll be back brand new on Monday with Municipal Affairs Canada Votes 2025. Till then, everyone.